Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flex here with a review for Prometheus. Prometheus is a fantastic movie. If you mute it, it is absolutely unwatchable if you have it with the sound on. I have had bowel movements that are less shitty than this film. It's safe to say I am not a fan of Prometheus. I finally have come to understand why it's called that, and it's because Ridley Scott wanted to come back to this franchise that he launched back in 1979 and steal the fire from it and bring it to the people to light them aflame. That's the only thing that makes sense as to why it's called Prometheus. That and the ship shares the same name. Now, I know this film has a lot of people who absolutely love and embrace the film, and those are the people that love and embrace technical filmmaking. And just like that first Alien film, this is a movie that is absolutely on fire technically. If you mute the film and just watch it as a visual escape, it is stunning. This is literally one of the best looking science fiction films that I have seen. The opening 5-minute segment of the film is breathtaking in its beauty of landscape shots, and how the digital technology that is now 12 years old doesn't look it. It looks like it holds scrutiny to today's finest work. This is a movie that I can sing the praises for exclusively the technical makeup. But when you apply any kind of thought to anything being said, the movie falls apart. The screenplay is where this thing drops effing dead. And it's a film that really likes to pontificate about all sorts of different things, and in its trying to wax intellectual by asking all these questions, it fails to deliver a single fucking answer. It is so, absolutely terrified of maybe providing a wrong answer. It's just not going to provide any. So what you're left with is a film that is exclusively made up of questions, open-ended questions, that then puts the onus on us to extrapolate what we can from it. And that is the laziest kind of science fiction that there is. I don't feel like if you are in the medium of film, which is a medium of statements, of declarations, of exclamation points. That's what a film is. It's a punctuation mark, not an ellipses. That's television. So television, it's okay to constantly ask questions, and it's not lost on me that one of the writers of this film is from Lost, a TV show that is constantly known about asking questions and scrutinized negatively for the answers provided. But if you were in the medium of making a movie and your movie is asking questions, you should provide some kind of answer within the text that is easily attainable. And this film just doesn't have that. You have a lot of think pieces on this film because it does have so many open-ended pieces that you can try and figure out what is happening. But that is, as I say, lazy. That is a filmmaker who is without a backbone, trying to, as I say, wax intellectual or pontificate these ideas without forming any for themselves. And it's okay to ask questions. That's what human nature is. But if you're going to ask the questions, you should try to find a place within yourself to see what answers you're comfortable with and put them forth. This film fails to do that, and in failing to do that, the whole film falls apart. Not only that, the logic of the film kind of dissipates when you have these supposed experts going into their field of expertise and acting like goddamn fools in a slasher film. And that just doesn't ring true creatively. But there's been a lot of things said about Prometheus that all I can do is simply restate. I have several problems with the film that I think the good fellas at Honest Trailers completely said out loud quite brilliantly in their Honest Trailer for this film. I urge you to check that out if you've not seen it, because that dismantles this movie pretty expertly. That said, there's stuff that they didn't really touch on that irk me. I think one of the biggest issues that I have with this film is that it's so clear that Ridley Scott has no interest in being in the world of Alien, but couldn't get an idea like this off the ground without tying it to Alien, that certain compromises were made, and it ends up being a half-assed Alien movie. And my guess would be that Ridley Scott agreed to make an Alien movie for the studio, and the studio let him kind of do what he wanted, and he ended up backpedaling on the alienness of the film. And this movie probably would have been suited better if it was a film that connected the dots to get to Alien, as clearly the screenplay has it do. But suddenly, in the final cut of the film, that's not the case. So instead, now, there are two derelict ships out there in the Alien universe that crash land on LV-4 something planets. This film, I think, was like 431, and in the original film it's 426. There are two derelict ships now crash-landed where aliens will emerge from them. The one, LV-426, in the original Alien film and its sequel, and there is this one that crash-lands. Why couldn't that just have been the same planet? Clearly in the screenplay that was what the case was. It brought us to the point where we could understand where that derelict came from, answering even a question from the first film. So far, this film brings up a billion questions on its own, failing to provide any answers, and doesn't even answer the one question that it clearly set out to answer, but at the last second, Ridley Scott pulled that away from you too. How frustrating is that? On top of that, you have the base premise of the film, these scientists in multitudinous different fields who discover ancient ruins in a cave, exactly how they were discovered in Alien vs. Predator. So this film is riffing on Alien vs. Predator at this point, which when I first saw it day one, I was like, really? You're taking from arguably the worst Alien movie to that point that this film had come out? That's interesting. But let's see where it goes with it. It just used the same framework to get there. I have no idea why they didn't come up with something different. But yeah, it just straight up lifts the exact same base premise of how the story gets propelled into existence from Alien vs. Predator of all things. And it ruminates on the existence of the androids and on the cloning that Alien Resurrection kind of tapped into. The whole David storyline in this film feels like it's just a continuation of themes already expressed in Alien Resurrection, which a lot of people think is the worst of the original Alien mainline franchise. But it doesn't do anything better with them. You have I will admit, I do like what went forward with David. David is a compelling character. He's the only character that has character in this film that isn't just an archetype, that isn't just a character that's dismantled by the own logic of their character by the end of the film. Like you have Noomi Rapace's character, who is obsessed with finding what life means because she has no way to create life, but then has life growing within her and immediately wants nothing to do with this. And like it's all like what could be the makings of an interesting character is dismantled by the end of that character's story in this film. And we're not even talking about the sequel. We'll touch on that at a later point in time. But I digress. David is the only thing that's even interesting and compelling about this movie, and a lot of the things that make him interesting and compelling are ideas already explored in previous Alien films. be it mostly Alien, Aliens, and Alien Resurrection, which is strange. It makes this film like completely unwatchable. And what's even more frustrating with the David character is the sentiment that I seem to feel from Ridley Scott is he never wanted to make Alien. He just didn't. He made the first Alien movie, and he did a bang-up job. Everybody gives him credit for this franchise and what he did with making this gothic horror in space. And it is admittedly insanely functional on that level. But the one thing Scott and company brought to Alien that was absent from the script is the character of Ash and this android and this focus on sort of like biomechanics and artificial intelligence being made into being. In short, an android. Completely absent in the original screenplay for Alien. And it's even more apparent that he follows Alien up with Blade Runner, which doubles down on an interest in that story. And it's very clear that he wanted this film to be that story, and the studio greenlit it thinking they were getting an Alien prequel, and it is in the sense that it like has the engineers or space jockey as I grew up knowing him as well as the derelict ship. It has some of the iconography that we're familiar with from the Alien franchise, but it doesn't even give you an alien that you're familiar with or a facehugger that you're familiar with. It gives you variants on them, but it does give you the exact thing that was his own creation in the film and the thing that interests him, which is the droid, the android. And that's something that kind of bugs me, because I personally think the worst aspect of Alien is the android subplot. It doesn't work for me. I don't think it needs to be there. I firmly agree with the screenwriter of Alien who didn't like that or approve of that being in the film, but he had no say. He sold his script and that's what they made of it. I don't think its logic holds up. I think by Aliens they've course corrected enough to make that logic fit, but it just the whole suddenly there's an android on board came out of nowhere when I first watched that first Alien movie back in the day. And I was just like, that was a harder sell to me than the alien aspect of Alien. It just, that's the one thing in Alien that I really, really don't think works. Aliens found a way to make it work. Not only with the android and the Bishop character and how it subverts our expectations, but also makes more of an apparent villain out of the company and how like the company is utilized, which is much more forefront and not this mystical background. You can kind of figure it out if you're watching it, but it comes out of nowhere component to that first movie. This movie is all about the Weyland and all about the droid, the android. And the android is the most compelling part of the movie that is otherwise awful. And it doesn't ever explain what David's motivation to suddenly turn heel ever. The first time I saw this, when he dipped the ooze into the cup, I was just like, why would he do that? Like, there was no moment leading up to that moment that indicated that he would do something like that. And the film never genuinely explores it. It would get explored in the sequel, and we'll talk about Alien Covenant, because I actually have quite a few thoughts on Alien Covenant that are a little more complex than my thoughts on this one, which is abject hatred. I just, he's the most compelling part, and compelling for kind of the wrong reasons in this movie. Because you're trying to figure out why he did it. Again, you're left with continual questions and no provided answers. They would get provided in a sequel that I think stands superior to this film, if only just. And I've only seen Covenant once, so I'm actually excited to revisit it. I'm revisiting these because of Alien Romulus, which I'm desperately excited for, and hoping that is really good in 1 month's time. But, yeah, so if you do love this movie, tell me why. Because I don't think the horror works. There's no moment in the film that is genuinely scary. There's some, like, creepy or gross things, but that's about it. I'm left with this feeling that the characters I'm spending time with are completely asinine and a waste of my time. They're just complete idiots. The zoologist who sees the rearing snake thing, and it's like, come on. You know that you don't continue to go forward when something is provoking you like that, or warning you, and yet he still does it, is just absolutely baffling. The guy who's there to map out the territory and has no idea how it goes. The other frustrating things in this movie that I'm just like, this technology is so strange, because we're given a glimpse of what happened in the past, where you see the engineer running and then the corpses and all that kind of stuff, and we're told a piece of that story. I'm not sure why that's there. It doesn't actually provide any information. It provides more questions for us to ask, wanting to know more or see more. And I just, if that's there, like, that just, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. The one piece of technology that I was perplexed by the most is when David is first being introduced and you see him walking around, and that's how you get to know that David is a robot. And he's looking and looking and looking, and then he sees that he can watch these people's dreams on, like, a view screen, and it's like, what a strange way for the audience to be given information about Noomi Rapace's character. Like, that's strange just in general. But how does this technology work? Like, I find that to be less believable than anything else. Less believable than the droid, or the way this crazy alien concoction works that goes from goo to the thing that sort of becomes the face hugger, which is a full body hugger, which is sort of like an alien when it bursts out of the guy at the end. I can buy that more than I can buy the, oh, let's just watch what these people are dreaming technology that is, like, strange. My kid has a toy and it just growled at me. Even that wants me to move on. The last thing I'm going to leave you with Prometheus is the frustrating knowledge that there were answers provided for this movie that were lifted out. Some gracious people found stuff from the screenplay that did provide answers, and I think those answers are what makes the movie interesting. Left unsaid, the movie doesn't make sense. Like, why the engineers are trying to come, why now, all this kind of stuff. Like, what is their end game, and what are they ultimately trying to do? Well, it turns out the engineers came, as we saw in the opening scene, which, without the later context of the story, is just, what did that opening scene have anything to do with anything in the movie? It's a great opening scene. It absolutely sucks you in, pulls you in, but you're like, what is happening? The suggestion there is that the life came from the ooze that the engineer drank, that completely dismantled his body and then brought forth life from the water as he fell, crumbling into the water, and his DNA reemerges into what will become intelligent life. Now, I don't know if the suggestion is that that's only how humanoid life came from, or all life stems from that, because we certainly look like a reflection of that. much more so than anything else. So that does beg the question, like, say goats. Was there like a goat alien that went to that same body of water and was like, all right, time to take the juice, and then like, and dismantled itself into the water, and now we have goats. It's a thing that keeps me up at night. But moving on to the point I was trying to make, in the script, you were provided information that we came from the engineers many years ago, sort of like they are God. They provided us with life as a reflection of them, but they saw us roughly 2,000 years ago as being warring and disgusting creatures that weren't taking advantage of this excellent gift that they had within their life, and they sent an engineer down to show us the way. And that person was caught and crucified. And that the story of Jesus emerged from the engineers. And our slaying and crucifying of that engineer is what brought them to come back. But their ship landed and they went dormant for 2,000 plus years until they were reawoken to continue that journey to Earth. And that provides some kind of answer. That brings us to certain questions of why and where we come from and what these myths and stories ultimately give. And it makes the story, the name Prometheus, make a little more sense. Yes, I know it's the name of the ship, but it also shows that God, these godlike beings provided us with a gift that we stole from them and were being struck down and punished for. All of that makes much more sense when you were provided those missing crucial pieces from a screenplay that never got filmed, or at least it's not included in any of the deleted footage or anything like that. And this is a film that just frustrates me. And what frustrates me more is that even though this film doesn't give you any answers, it has a huge fucking fan base that is ride or die for this film, and I absolutely do not understand it. Roger Ebert, who is one of my favorite individuals on this planet and one of the most influential people to my life, gave this movie a 4-star review, and I cannot for the life of me understand why. So if you are one of those people, can you provide me with why? Why do you like it? What is it that you like about it besides the technical makeup? How can you move past the bumps that come with, you know, a movie that leaves you feeling completely incomplete and having to bring so much more to the movie than what is actually there, and to do the work for the movie when the movie should be doing the work for you? I'm done with my rant. Hopefully next week you'll have a much more interesting and uplifting and not so negative review of Alien Covenant. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.